and then Mr. PB Singh will take it forward.
This meeting is being
All right, ma'am.
recorded.
Yeah. So,
PB sir, now you may start.
yeah. Okay. Should I start?
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome,
Ramji, should
everyone. And
yeah.
Mr. Martand has a bachelor in computer science and engineering, a postgraduate diploma in the big data analytics.
Just PB Singh ji,
Yeah.
you can just say afterwards. Just I'll say we can welcome him, Mr. Shardul. Welcome to our webinar series. This, you know, it is being celebrated all over the country. And as a part of the celebrations, we are doing this series, and we have completed more than 25 lectures. But this is one sector, you know, wind, as you said, it is one of the pioneer areas where, and in the ministry also, initially also when we joined, we always had a focus on wind, and wind was something where we could get out of the subsidy regime. Yeah? So that was something, but of late interacting with wind, while it is contributing more than 40 gigawatt today, and you have a big manufacturing base, but still there are challenges, and I feel those challenges you will be addressing in your lecture. And we in Skill Council also are focused on all these sectors, including wind, and we did some specific projects for Vestas, like training their people. Otherwise, we are now on with the Vayumitra program, where we will be training and skilling 5,000 people. So this interaction is there, and we look forward to you to interact with us and really give us your input and your, you know, whatever help or assistance or what you can do in skilling and taking this forward. Now I request Mr. PB Singh, he can welcome you and to give a brief of your achievements and of your journey in the renewable sector. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's an honor to be part of this initiative.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Martand has a bachelor's in computer science and engineering, a postgraduate diploma in big data analysis, and a master's in sustainable development practice. Martand Shardul has more than a decade of experience in areas of public policy, clean energy transaction, data analytics, and digital transformation. He worked with Terry in Lighting a Billion Lives initiatives, where he has steered the implementation of clean energy projects in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. He received the
I think the sound is slightly low, Mr. Ram.
Terry Roll of Honor to 2016 for his contribution to UN Sustainable Energy for All Capacity Building Hub. His name was also included in the UN Environment Face for Change 2017 list. He has served as an honorary representative for South Asia and later as the first network coordinator for South Asia at the UN Sustainable Development Solution Network Youth. He was the founding leadership committee member for the Student and Alumni Advisory Council of the Global MDP, which is hosted at the Earth Institute, Columbia University. Mr. Martand has worked in IT sector where he supported the development of financial and information management products for the US market. Mr. Martand is currently the policy director at the Global Wind Energy Council, India, and a mentor of the Terra. Let's over to you. Shiv sir wants to say something.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Sir, you sir. क्या सर आप म्यूट हैं. Okay, Rohit.
You can unmute him. You must not.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martin. In fact, it is such a pleasure to see you again. We were all looking forward for a good lecture on wind, and I'm sure all the audience would be very happy to listen to you. Please go ahead. Let us start the session. I'll interact towards the end.
All right. Thank you very much, Saxena sir. And once again, I convey my thanks, a very special thanks to the entire SCGJ team for wonderful efforts that the institution is making. And I see that there are several colleagues with whom I have interacted or worked with during my slightly decade-long journey in the RE space. So it's quite a privilege to be part of this great initiative of the SCGJ. Now, without taking much time, what I will be doing today is that I'll be discussing about what is happening globally, and then I will slightly come down to what is happening on India within India, and why do we really need wind energy. I think the foremost question is that even before discussing that why do we need wind energy, I think the foremost question is that why do we even need renewable energy. And with these the starting points, I will try to set the tone of this discussion that we are having today, and then we will discuss that what is happening currently on the progress on wind energy, and then how what are the kinds of opportunities that we see as we go ahead. So first of all, I'll quickly share my slide, and I'll be sharing some of the stats and data points. So please excuse me if some of these data points are really daunting, or some of them are really disturbing, because I know some of you might be quite passionate about the planetary health and social well-being, but some of these statistics might not be in favor of what you really want to happen as global fraternity. So let me share my screen. Ram, do I have the permission to share my screen?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
And I'll have to click on
Share
the
screen.
view button.
So at the bottom, you see share screen highlighted in green.
Ah, yeah, yes, sorry. Thank you.
Your screen is visible to us, sir. You can put it on a slide mode.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I think all of us have already seen some of these stats, some of these news items. And let me tell you that last year, one of the labs that is globally monitoring CO2 emissions reported that we had almost touched 420 ppm. And this is quite disturbing, because the planet Earth had touched around 400 ppm stat almost 3 million years ago. And this is only in recent times that we are seeing that the 400 ppm benchmark is every year we are crossing that benchmark. But then let us try to understand that why even this is a problem. So let us, in order to have a look into it and to understand it better, let us go into some more stats. So what is the trend for global CO2 emissions? If you see this on my screen, there was a slight dip around 2008, between 2008 and 2010, and this can be confidently linked to and attributed to the global recession that we were facing. And then you see that there was a increase and acceleration in global CO2 emissions. But let us see what is happening in India. So even in India, the trend is almost the similar. So whether it is globally or whether it is in India, ever since we have witnessed industrial revolution, we see that there has been a swift increase in global CO2 emissions. And we are all aware that globally, regionally, nationally, and locally, all of us are experiencing extreme weathers. We are witnessing climate variability. At least people who are of my age and people who are more experienced than me can very well relate to the fact that climate extremes have become more visible, they have become more frequent, and they have become more devastating. And sadly, that a majority of people who get affected because of climate extremes are also the most vulnerable. They are also the ones who are struggling with poverty, whether it is energy poverty or whether it is poverty in terms of economic status. So I think not just because we want to save the planet, but also on humanitarian grounds, that because there are a billion plus people who are affected by climate change just because of the virtue of the fact that they're struggling with poverty. And then as the world fraternity, all of us are at a threat. Our coexistence is at threat. Our coexistence with other species is at threat. So let us see what does the IPCC says. Now the premier body IPCC says in one of the recently published report that historical, I'll just read out what was written in the report. So historical cumulative net CO2 emissions from 1850 to 2019 were 2400 plus minus 240 gigaton CO2. And then what is important is the fact that most of these, more than half, 58% occurred between 1850 and 1989, and about 42% between 1990 and 2019. So this is the time when globally, regionally and nationally, we have become more conscious of climate change. And still we see that almost 42% has happened between 1990 and 2019, which means that certainly we are not doing enough to tackle climate change, whether it is at the national levels, whether it is at the regional levels, or whether it is at the global level. Now, there is one more stat. Net anthropogenic GHG emissions for people and for my friends who are not aware of what is anthropogenic. So basically anthropogenic means human-induced climate change or human-induced GHG emissions. So now the IPCC says that net anthropogenic GHG emissions have increased since 2010 across all major sectors globally. And increasing share of emissions can be attributed to urban areas. Now, there is no dearth of evidence that humans have a serious role to play.
For a while, I think there is an echo from your side. So if you have two system on, please make it switch off one system. Otherwise,
do you want me to, disconnect and then connect again? Because I don't have any other system connected right now.
It's okay. So then carry on, please. Thank you.
Rohit, is the same for you? Is the echo coming from to your side as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Facing the same problem.
But I think, Martand sir, you are audible, so that's not an issue. You can please go ahead.
All right. Thank you. And I'm really sorry for this technical glitch. Now, what does the IRENA and IEA say? So IRENA and IEA say that globally, we need to really increase our efforts for adding renewable energy capacities. And primarily, they are referring to solar and wind, which are the most, and these two are, of course, one of the most commercially viable technologies, most mature technologies that are available to all of us. India has abundant resources of both wind and solar. But before I delve further and before I go into what IRENA and IEA have been talking about, in case we want to transition to net zero, a phenomena to which India has also agreed upon. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has set a vision for our transition to net zero by 2070. And this is a very bold step, I must say, because as a country, we have been pioneers on the climate action front, even before that the world had started talking about aggressive efforts and proactive efforts for adding renewable.
मार्तंड आपकी वॉइस नहीं आ रही है.
So we'll check with Mr. Martand offline. He might have lost his internet connection. So please give us a second.
TV sir, maybe you can request the speaker he can
I'm
log
calling
out.
him. Tell him that I'm calling him.
Yeah.
Martand, we have lost you. Martand, we have lost you. Martand, Sangeeta this side.
Arpit, so we are coordinating the background.
Jiram.
There's a power trip on his side. He's trying to get back.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome back, Shardul.
Mr. Martin, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm sharing my screen once again.
Sure, please go ahead.
There was power trip at my end, so the modem got booted. Yes. So let us try to understand that what is our global energy mix. So we have around 6,000 gigawatt of global installations. And out of this 6,000, almost 3,000 is coal. And we only have slightly close to 1,000 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity globally, which means that if we want to transition to net zero, whether it is tomorrow, whether it is the next week, or whether it is in the coming years, and if we go by the current energy demand, and if we presume that the current energy demand continues over the next few decades, it doesn't increase any further. So even then, in order to transition to net zeros, we will have to eliminate this 5,000 gigawatt from the global global mix that we have, global electricity generation mix that we have. So you imagine that out of 6,000, we have to remove around 5,000, out of which 3,000 is coal. And we are all aware of the fact that whether it is solar, whether it is wind, the most mature renewable energy technologies have much lower plant load factor, PLF, as compared to the conventional fuel, which is coal. And now, which really makes it clear that if we have to replace this 5,000 gigawatt of capacity with renewables, then it is not 5,000 gigawatt that we have to install, but rather it is maybe around 7,500 or 8,000 gigawatt of capacity that we will have to install to match with the current global installed capacity that we have. So imagine that there is a huge target in front of us. And if we have to replace this 5,000 gigawatt of non-renewable energy sources, then we really have to aggressively increase the capacity addition that is happening on the annual basis. We are only adding around 150 gigawatt of capacity on an annual basis. And this is not sufficient. If we have to replace coal, if we have to replace other fossil fuel sources from our global generation mix. So the target globally and nationally is not just about having technology commercially available to us, but it is also about having investments available to us. In order to facilitate global transition, we need almost $1 trillion of investment annually. India alone leads around $30 to $50 billion of investment annually. So you imagine this is a huge investment opportunity. At the same time, it is a great challenge for us to source finance, easy finance, low cost finance, and finance at competitive rates to facilitate our process of transition to non-fossil fuel sources. Our Honorable Prime Minister, during the recent edition of COP, also set the vision that by 2030, we will be having 500 gigawatts of capacity of non-fossil fuel sources. We already have almost 40% of our electricity generation mix, which comes from non-fossil fuel sources, which includes both renewable energy and hydro sources. Now, as a country, we have also exceeded the 100 gigawatt target of renewable energy capacity that was set a few years back. When we started with the National Solar Mission, I think today that target of 20 gigawatt appears to be so small, such a dwarf target. But I'm sure that when we started and when we had set a target of 20 gigawatt way back in 2008, then as a country, it was a massive challenge for us. It was a big target, and certainly it was the foundation stone of the benchmarks that we have set as a country, the kind of investments that we have attracted, the kind of leadership that we have established in global renewable energy capacity addition, in national renewable energy capacity addition. And why I'm saying we have set benchmarks, because we are not just adding renewable energy capacity for our use, but we are also part of the global supply chain. So now when it has become clear that our global mix is majorly comprising non-fossil fuel sources, and our challenge is not just to increase the share of renewable energy capacity in this mix, but our challenge is also to eliminate the use of non-fossil fuel sources while ensuring that there are opportunities for just transition. And here I see that efforts of the Skill Council for Green Jobs becomes really important. And we'll be touching upon those aspects. But before that, let us also try to understand that while we have to replace, we have to introduce new sources in our electricity generation mix. Now, the IEA and the IRENA say that wind energy is going to be a major constituent of our global electricity mix in 2030, when we are heading towards achieving our Paris target. By mid-century, it is presumed that we will have around 8,000 gigawatts of capacity of wind energy if we stick to the 1.5 degree pathway. And where do we stand right now? So one, of course, it is clear that we have to transition, and why we have to transition. Now, second, it is also clear that solar and wind are the only most commercially viable and mature technologies that we have in our hand. Now, why these technologies are important? Now, these technologies are not just important because of the fact that the emissions during their operations is zero, almost zero. Let me just again throw you some statistics for you. When we generate 100 units of electricity using coal, then we emit almost 70 to 75 pounds of CO2. When we do that using natural gas, it comes to around 40 pounds. When we do that using oil or other fossil fuel sources, it is around 50 to 53 pounds that we emit. But when we do that using solar and wind, at least from the operations point of view, from the generation point of view, it is nil. And globally, we are already working towards greening the entire value chain for solar and wind. Within GWEC, we already have a global initiative wherein we already have institutions like the NTPC, Adani, Renew Power that are part of this global initiative, along with several other global giants, energy sector giants, who are part of this initiative and working towards greening the entire value chain for solar energy and for wind energy. So now, right now, we have almost 800 to 845 gigawatts of global wind capacity that is installed. Within India, we have slightly more than 40 gigawatt of wind capacity installed. And I will be discussing about our journey in the wind sector. But I think it was really important to set the tone and to communicate to our audience that why is it that we need a transition to clean energy? And when we talk about clean energy, why do we even need wind energy? And what is happening on wind energy on the global front? To my stakeholders, let me inform that as of now, some of the most in the wind sector, some of the most pioneering technologies that we have is, of course, onshore wind and offshore wind. We also have floating offshore wind that we have. But in India, so far, we have only been able to add 40 gigawatt of onshore wind capacity. We have a cumulative target of 140 gigawatt of wind capacity by 2030, out of which we have installed slightly more than 40 gigawatt. All comes from onshore wind. And globally, India is ranked 4th in terms of wind power capacity, onshore wind power capacity that we have. We already have a target for offshore wind capacity, which stands at around 30 gigawatt by 2030. So far, we have not done any offshore wind installation, but there is a rapid work that is undergoing. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is working closely with stakeholders, with a range of offshore wind energy stakeholders, towards adding offshore wind capacity in India. And we are all very hopeful that in the coming months, we'll be able to see a tender for first few gigawatts of offshore wind capacity. So without taking much time, now here comes the challenge. So when IRENA and IEA are saying that we have to add massive capacities of wind power to be able to meet the Paris target set as part of Paris Accord. Now, I've already said that we have around 843 gigawatt of global wind capacity that is installed. We have around 57 gigawatt of offshore wind capacity that is installed. And last year, we have seen a major growth on addition of offshore wind capacity. We have seen a slight dip in some areas, in some regions on offshore wind capacity addition, but we have also seen that in Europe, in Latin America, and few other regions, including Africa, there has been a swift growth in onshore wind capacity addition. Within India, even though we were struggling with the global pandemic, we were struggling with COVID-19 crisis, we have been able to add significant amount of wind capacity, and there are good capacities that are going to come online this year and in the coming years. We also have a good pipeline in place, but then there are several challenges that we are already dealing with. Now, here I want to reiterate and emphasize on the fact that even though we have to add such massive capacities, 8,000 plus gigawatt of wind power capacity to be able to meet Paris Accord targets, we still have only, 840 gigawatts of global capacity, which means that there are massive efforts and massive investments that have to be made. And for India, we already have a 140 gigawatt target, and we are standing at close to 40 gigawatts. So there are huge opportunities. But can we solve the global crisis alone? Should the wind industry perform in silos? Or should we all come together and see that what are the underlying opportunities? What are the various technologies to which we can feed? How can we identify synergies? I would really recommend to our stakeholders that you must definitely refer to our recently published edition of Global Wind Report at GWEC. There are some of the flagship publications that we do every year. And one, of course, is the Global Wind Report. And then there's the global offshore wind report, there's global offshore wind, floating wind report, and there's a global wind workforce report that we publish every year. These are some of the most pioneering works that we undertake. We also have flagship publications that are focused on India. And I'm sure that you will find huge knowledge within these reports and the pathways that lie ahead for us to work together. Now, let us quickly see that what are the various solutions that we have in order to transition to net zero. Now, you see that each of these technologies, even when we talk about the transport sector, where we are going to see a massive transition from fossil fuel based mobility to maybe hydrogen or maybe electric vehicles. So on both of these aspects, whether it is solar or whether it is wind, these technologies are going to play a pivotal role. And now how they're going to play a pivotal role? They are going to play a pivotal role because on one hand, they have to, these technologies have to already work in sync with the massive oil and gas industry that we have in place. Now here I want to point out the fact that every year, the fossil fuel industry is making an investment of around $500 billion to $550 billion. And globally, the kind of investment that we are witnessing in the renewable energy sector is much lower than what is happening in the oil and gas sector. Now, this is to the tune of around $150 billion. India alone needs around $500 billion of investment in this decade to be able to make swift transition and the kind of transition that the vision for which we have already set and towards which we are working as stakeholders. So you imagine that there is a huge opportunity and there are huge responsibilities, shared responsibilities that each of us have to bear. But at the same time, there are risks in front of us. Now, some of the risks I think all of us can foresee. Pandemic itself was a major risk which curtailed our growth. Then there was risk related to logistics. Of course, in the recent months, the crisis that has emerged because of conflict between Ukraine and Russia is something that is curtailing the growth, and how it is curtailing the growth, I am going to discuss when we transition in our today's discussion towards what is happening in India. So it is quite clear that whether it is electric vehicles, whether it is green hydrogen, on all of these fronts, wind energy technology is going to play a pivotal role. Already, there is a massive pipeline that is being built up for electrolyzers. And to be able to fuel green hydrogen, we need green technology. And again, when we talk about green technology, it is of course solar and wind. So the idea of my today's presentation is not to tell you that wind is the supreme out of the available renewable energy technologies that we have, but we are living in an age where we have to see not competition between renewable energy technologies. Gone are those times. Even within India, we are living in an age where we have to diversify our energy mix. We have to diversify our electricity mix. And each of the clean energy sources have to play a pivotal complementary role. We as institutions, as organizations, as government bodies, as trade associations, as power producers, we have to realize the fact that if we continue to live in a regime wherein we are trying to create and whether we are trying to aggravate the competition between renewable energy technologies, that is not going to help us, because today's competition that primarily stands on the point of tariff is not what the planet needs. The planet needs transition and not competition. So I would once again reiterate and request to all of you that you may please have a look into our recently published edition of the Global Wind Report 2022. And with this, I come to what is happening within India. On the screen, you see the kind of growth that we have seen in the recent years within the wind sector. So we started with wind installations way back in 1980s. And our first wind installation was a private installation. It was a captive unit. And then subsequently, there was first government installation that was put in Tamil Nadu. And let me mention to our friends that the earliest projects in 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, we have added thousands and thousands of sub-megawatt turbines in the country. A majority of these are in Gujarat, in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, in Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Andhra Pradesh. Basically, these are the 7 states that are blessed with high wind resources. For offshore wind, the best potential sites are in Tamil Nadu and in Gujarat. For onshore, like I said, that these are the 7 promising and high wind resource states in the country. But as a country, the mere fact that our high wind resources are limited to only few states does not limit us from harnessing or from procuring or from using wind energy in other parts of this country. So we already have a policy which is called RPO. So each state has been provided a renewable purchase obligation, RPO target. They have a RPO. As a country, we have a RPO trajectory. Unfortunately, while majority of the windy states have met their RPO trajectory for non-solar component, where wind is the major player, most of the non-windy states have not been fulfilling their non-solar RPO trajectory. Now you see, there are several operational challenges, but I will not be immediately coming to the operational challenges. What I will discuss is the journey of wind industry first. And then I will come to the dip that you see, or the so-called dip that you see in wind capacity addition. So in green color, or rather I should say that in blue color, we have the target that was set for the previous financial years, and then you see in green color that what is the capacity that we have been able to harness. Now, some of my stakeholders would be very smart enough to observe that in 2016-17, we have surpassed our target, but that has not been the case in the following years. So I'll come to all of these issues, and here lies the mysteries of wind energy. Here lies the challenges that the wind industry is facing currently, and here lies the opportunities for us as stakeholders of India's clean energy transition, as stakeholders of India's wind energy. So friends, during the very early years when we started with wind energy capacity addition, we started adding sub-megawatt wind turbines. These were of the capacities of 100 kilowatt, 250 kilowatt. And I remember even in the solar sector, the earliest panels that were deployed in rural areas were 100-watt panels, or panels of slightly less than that capacity, 250-watt capacity panels that were deployed in modular forms to power health centers, to power schools, to power tribal hostels, and to power homes. So you see that there is a similarity between how wind started, and there is a similarity between how we have evolved in the solar sector within the country. Now, when the wind sector started, we also had a series of incentives that were provided by the central government. There were incentives provided by the state governments for facilitating the growth of wind energy in the country. One, of course, was accelerated depreciation, and a financial instrument that was leveraged by the government of India to push the uptake of wind energy sources in the country was FIT, feed-in tariff. So on one hand, during the years prior to 16-17, we had instruments like accelerated depreciation. We had instrument like generation-based incentive. We had instrument like the feed-in tariff to push and advance the wind sector. But during 16-17, there were massive changes that were brought into force. Number one, that these incentives, financial instruments that were in place were cut down. The mode of operations of wind sector in the country received a turnaround strategy. And what was this turnaround strategy? We will be discussing that. But this was a landmark year. This was a landmark year because the wind sector in the country was transitioning from a subsidy-based regime to market-based, 100% market-based regime. And my friends, let me share with you the fact that today, within our own country, within India, the wind sector receives zero financial incentives from the central government and from the state government. And yet we are operating on 100% market mode. So which is an achievement for us as a country, as wind sector stakeholders. Now, the question comes that when we were doing so good, when we considered ourselves to be strong enough, mature enough to be able to transition from subsidy-based regime to market-based mechanism, then why have the capacity additions dropped? And this is a pertinent question. So in 16-17, there was something called competitive bidding mode that was introduced within the wind sector for procurement of wind power. And this is called the reverse auctions mechanism. So prior to the reverse auctions mechanism, a majority of the projects were put using feed-in tariff as the financial instrument to advance wind sector. And this was withdrawn. FIT is still available for wind projects that are of capacity less than 25 megawatt. But for larger utility scale projects, 100 megawatt, 250 megawatt, 500 megawatt, and so on, such an incentive is not available anymore. So the entire wind sector within India saw a transition because of these developments that happened, not just on the policy front, but also because financial incentives, financial instruments that the government of India was leveraging so far were completely cut all of a sudden. And now, because of this cut, there was a new transition that was happening. Number one, the projects, the earliest wind projects were primarily deployed by partnership between wind manufacturers, wind turbine manufacturers, which are called OEMs. And there also used to be support from other supply chain players. And during 16-17, a transition started to happen when independent power producers began to come to fore. And there was investment, equity investment that was coming, huge equity investments were coming. And these IPPs had access to these equity investments. And there were other facilitating, enabling policy mechanisms that were provided, that were facilitated by the government of India, by the central government. One, of course, was the provision for connecting your wind power unit to the CTU. We all today know that our utility scale wind projects are connected to ISTS network, interstate transmission networks. Prior to auctions regime, as I mentioned to you earlier, that the majority of the projects were put by OEMs. And let me tell you, my friends, that unlike the utility scale solar projects, there is much higher grade of engineering that is involved in wind, in deploying a megawatt level of wind project in the country. Now, in case of solar panel, the same solar panel can be deployed in Bihar, the same panel can be deployed in Tamil Nadu, the same panel can be deployed in Karnataka. But this is not the case when we talk about the wind sector. So you have to match with wind speed. You have to match with the kind of CUF, capacity utilization factor, that we want to achieve. We have to match with the tender requirements. Now that we are operating in the auctions regime, where we have a letter of award from the tendering agency after successful bid is made. So we have to comply with those norms. The earliest projects that were installed in the country had CUF around 14%, 15%, 20%. Today's wind projects, and I feel very proud mentioning to you that today's wind projects are of much huge capacities. We have more than 3+ megawatt of onshore wind turbines that are already available in the country, that have been approved by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. So you imagine almost 10 gigawatt of turbines that are installed in the country are sub-megawatt turbines. So you imagine that there is a huge underlying opportunity in the wind sector. Now, if we replace this almost 10 gigawatt of capacity with modern, much efficient, much powerful 3x plus platform turbines, then the kind of potential that you already have as low-hanging fruit. So the government of India has introduced something called repowering policy for the wind sector, but the policy itself is facing several challenges. We have not been able to implement. Several discoms that have that own some of the wind turbine units replace aging or defunct turbines with a sub-megawatt capacity turbine of the same capacity. So of course, they are able to induce some grade of energy efficiency, but unfortunately, that is not helping us in harnessing the full power of wind sector that exists at that particular location. Why? Because majority of the sub-megawatt turbines are installed in class A sites, which means that these are installed at sites that have the most powerful wind potential. So repowering happens to be one of the opportunities that is evolving, that already exists as a low-hanging fruit. And then, like I earlier mentioned, that India is working swiftly and rapidly with a range of multilateral, bilateral stakeholders and offshore wind industry stakeholders, both public sector and private sector enterprises, for pushing ahead our targets, our efforts towards achieving the 30 gigawatt offshore wind capacity. Now, why offshore wind? Globally, there is enough evidence that the offshore wind is an area where we can deploy much more massive turbines in comparison to onshore wind turbines. So number one, on the CUF front, you will get much higher returns. Number two, we are all aware that whether it is utility scale solar or whether it is utility scale wind, we are certainly going to face some kind of challenges on land acquisition front to be able to put massive capacities of wind and onshore wind and solar. We need to acquire lands. So the government of India has come out with a policy of hybrid parks. One such park has been set up and the foundation stone was laid by Honorable Prime Minister during December 2020 in Kutch area of Gujarat. And this happens to be world's largest wind solar hybrid park. So we should again be proud. And at GWEC, we are already working within Tamil Nadu and pushing forward for replication of the idea of wind solar hybrid parks within the country, within the state. Every year, we publish our flagship India Outlook with the MEC Plus. And we have projected last year that around 20 gigawatt of capacity pipe is what India is going to add in the next few years. And a majority of this will come from hybrid tenders, which means wind solar hybrid tenders that the SECI is organizing. Now, we also have to recognize the challenges which the wind sector is facing. Number one, of course, is that while we started with auctions, reverse auctions mechanism, and we were able to see much lower tariffs in comparison to what we were witnessing during the FIT regime. But gradually, we started to have a crunch of ISTS networks. So power evacuation and transmission networks were not adequately available or not available at all in some regions. There were immense congestion at the substations. We are all aware of poor health of our discoms. Now, if the discoms are in poor health, they are not able to repay to our wind power developers. Consequently, this is adversely impacting the health of wind power developers. And there are huge payment issues, legacy payment issues, which the wind sector is struggling with. And then land acquisition, of course, is a major challenge. Some of the states like Gujarat in the past had revised their land policy, which led to increase in timelines of several wind projects that were already tendered and awarded. And these are some of the regions that why you see a dip in capacity addition in the recent years in the wind sector. Of course, ever since the fact that India was hit by COVID-19, as was with case with other parts of the country, subsequently we have started to see several risks that have come up, whether it was the Suez Canal, the Suez logistics crisis, or whether it is the Ukraine-Russia crisis. All of this has led to an escalation in the cost of commodities. So cement prices, steel prices, prices of copper, aluminum have soared like anything. And let me be very honest with you, my friends, that we are talking about a space within the renewable energy sector, within the energy sector, that is operating on a zero financial incentive mode, that is working on 100% market-based mechanisms, has to deal with not just operational challenges, whether it is the DISCOM not repaying back, whether it is lack of power evacuation and transmission infrastructure, whether it is challenges around acquisition of land. So if you're not able to acquire the land, you're not able to complete the project in timeline, within your time frame, and project execution costs increase. Now you see, we also have to recognize the fact that there are only specific areas within the country whether you have high potential winds available. So when a tender is announced, there is a huge rush for acquiring land in those areas. And ultimately, what will this lead to? This will lead to escalation in price of land. This will lead to escalation in demand for connection points, whether it is at the substation level, whether it is a demand for power evacuation and transmission networks. Now, if I have a wind project that is commissioned within time frame, but my power evacuation and transmission infrastructure is not commissioned within the time frame, so I am at a big risk. And this is a risk which the wind sector has been facing for several years. And that's why the government of India has now come out with the Green Corridors project, and we are hopeful that the Green Corridors project will be able to bring some respite to the wind sector and to the utility scale solar projects in the country. This is inevitable. So you see that there are a number of underlying challenges which the wind sector is facing in the country. At the same time, we have almost 10 to 12 gigawatt of manufacturing capacity within the country. There are no enough opportunities for consuming our own domestic manufacturing capacity. So you see that we have not been able to deploy and commission any more than 2.5 gigawatt of capacity in the past few years, when you already have a domestic manufacturing capacity of 10 to 12 gigawatts. So majority of this goes for exports, which means that the wind sector is not just helping the country in transitioning to clean energy. It is not just helping in decarbonizing our power sector. It is not just creating jobs, but at the same time, it is also helping in greening the entire global power demand. It is helping in decarbonizing the world. At the same time, India is contributing to global green supply chain. And let me be very proud and boastful of the fact that the wind manufacturing sector in the country has been getting a trade surplus for the country for several years. And yet, the sector is facing several issues in regards to tax and duties, which are hampering growth, which are setting our products, which are hampering the competitiveness of our products, wind energy products that are manufactured in India. So we not just have to boost our manufacturing capacity, but we also have to stay competent, competitive, and relevant. And with these, I believe that whether it is on the front of 140 gigawatt target, or whether it is because that we have huge manufacturing capacities and we really have to boost our manufacturing capacities, we already have to build our manufacturing capacities for offshore wind, I'm sorry. And now you see then that while we are only talking about onshore and offshore wind, the world is also gradually transitioning towards floating offshore wind. And that is something that we have not been able to still think of. So there are a number of underlying opportunities, whether it is on the front of power generation using wind power, whether it is on the front of manufacturing. But one big opportunity that lies in front of us is the fact that wind power is certainly important for innovative tenders such as the round-the-clock tenders, which help us in providing 24/7, 365 clean power, reliable power, and a steady, strong and robust grids, a balanced grid system to the country. Green power to our commercial and industrial installations who are already procuring power at much higher rates from conventional sources. Most importantly, my friends, let me wrap up today's session by telling you that wind power is available to the country at the time when in most of the states we have our peak demand. This is the time when the power from any other source is very expensive. And this is the time when we don't have solar available. And I'm here trying to refer to the peak that comes in the evening hours. And this is the time that wind is available abundantly in most of the high wind potential sites. So thank you. And with this, I would like to close the session, and I'm open for question and answers. I know that this I might have been able to touch on some of the issues for the wind sector, but certainly there might be issues that we might have not been able to discuss because of dearth of time. And within the wind sector, whether it is the auctions regime, whether it is tariff, whether it is generation, all of these specifically need several hours of discussion and discourse, and I'm happy to do that in the future. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martand. We had a very informative session, and the transition which has taken place, or it is taking place, wind is going to contribute a lot. I want to ask you one thing. See, we were looking for, I was in Delhi, we were looking for substitutes for diesel in the telecom sector.
Right.
Have you set up any hybrid plants where wind and biomass, have we set up any plants, or are you aware of such plants where we have a hybrid of wind and biomass?
Ma'am, unfortunately, I think, I think that kind of pilot has not been done so far. Primarily, the business is more interested in, utility scale, merging utility scale solar and wind, because that is where the business lies. That is where you will be able to have appealing and attractive IRRs. You will be able to have returns that are attractive enough for investors.
No, but of course, was interaction with the telecom sector where we were asking them to reduce diesel in their towers and all that. So I think the telecom department or ministry had asked that we can take up hybrid plants, but I also don't know of any such hybrid plants if they have come up. Maybe in Bihar or somewhere. You're not aware, no?
Ma'am, actually, Bihar doesn't have a potential for wind power that is very appealing. They have some potential, but they don't have potential for the wind turbines that we have currently available in the country. For those within GWEC, we are already being advocating for harnessing our low and medium wind sites within the country. Yesterday itself, I think the World Economic Forum has posted a video, very interesting video, wherein there is a very low power, wind turbine that one can carry during their hikes and trips in their bag, and it is bottled just like a pen pen handle that you have. So I think interesting things are happening. I think I totally forgot to mention that within the wind sector, we are already working towards effective waste management and reuse of our used wind turbines. There was a very viral video that was posted by World Economic Forum again, which was for one of our working group members and GWEC member, SGRE, Siemens Gamesa. So they have started using their used wind blades for setting up cycle stand shelters, bus shelters, and so on. So innovative things are happening within the wind space. And I think when we talk about skills development, we must not just look from the perspective of wind industry, but we should also look at how opportunities can be created out of repowering. When there will be dismantling happening, there will be waste management that one will have to look into. So, and of course, for offshore wind, which is going to gradually come up, we don't have capacities at all. We don't have whether it is manufacturing capacities or skills available. So that is something that gradually we have to build within the country.
I think Mr. Debajit has answered my question that wind biomass gasifier hybrid plants were implemented by Webreda, because in Sundarbans, I think so. Yeah, in Sundarbans, small plants.
Absolutely,
and,
ma'am. So high capacity
by cyclones and all that, but they were there.
Right. So utility scale projects are not that appealing because the returns might not be attractive enough for power developers.
Commercial. Yeah.
Absolutely, ma'am.
Yeah, but then when you look at development and when you look at requirements, you have to weigh down the pros and cons and then do setup. I have seen this windmills. Like I've been to the Pondicherry. There was a factory in Pondicherry near Tamil Nadu on the border that I visited. And of course, some windmills in Chindwara, that 1 megawatt, I think it was a huge windmill. That was the first time I saw a windmill laid back, And the basic was that at that time, though it was a huge windmill, but the capacity with the power generation was very minimal. It was not even 5 kilowatt at that time. So this, what you have also mentioned, the transition or the conversion and the DC, AC, I'm not an engineer, I don't know much, but these things were the problems. And I think these have been resolved over a period of time. We were also saying that people don't build houses where windmills are there because of the birds and all that and the noises and all that. I think we have gone over, we now are not thinking about all these things. Only we are thinking how wind can contribute to the major kitty which we have, the goal which we have evolved. So if there are any other questions, is there anything else in the chat box?
Prem Bharti wants to say something.
Yeah, please. And Dr. Saxena also wanted to participate. Okay. Yeah. Prem.
I think, ma'am, I think sir can speak, then I will.
Yeah, please, Mr. Prem.
Yes, ma'am. So I said if sir want to speak, I think that will be fine. I will be.
No, you come on. You ask your question.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you. So first, I would like to thank Mr. Martand for such a very insightful session. I think it's very wonderful. You have tried to capture a wide, aspect of the wind sector. Also the technical, challenges and the policy level, strategy which is happening in India. I have two questions for you. One which I wanted to ask regarding the CUF. So if we are, coming up with a hybrid wind solar hybrid or wind solar storage hybrid, then what impact it could be on the CUF side? Can we achieve more than 80% of CUF if we are coming up with wind solar hybrid or wind solar storage hybrid?
I think, with wind alone, we are able to achieve a CUF of over 40% in some of the areas. And we can go further if we put wind solar together. Now, when we talk about storage, so primarily the idea of having storage is the fact that you are able to contribute to the reliability part. strengthening and grid balancing part, because they are able to provide steady power. So definitely you might not be able to achieve 180% CUF, but what you will be able to achieve is that you will be able to provide more returns from the same unit that you have deployed. You will be able to achieve higher returns as power producer. You'll be able to comply with the tender norms that you have in place. And most importantly, you will be able to garner and expand your consumer base, which is one of the most lucrative base, of course, is the CNI segment. So that you will be able to do, and you will be able to further increase your CUF from the 40%, 45%, which is in general for onshore wind, most of the sites, that you will be able to increase to a much larger extent.
What kind of, in percentage terms, if we ask, how much percentage can vary for the tariff, compared to normal utility scale solar tariff? If we are coming up with a hybrid, then how much it will be impact?
All right. So if we see the recent trends for the reverse auctions mechanism, then we will see that the tariff for hybrid projects are slightly higher than for the standalone vanilla wind projects. But gradually we see that those tariffs are going to come down. And when we add battery, so we are all aware that the cost of battery is quite expensive right now. And here, of course, again comes the role of wind. So till the time that battery is really expensive, if you want to do hybrid using solar and battery alone, then just by the virtue of the fact that you have to add storage technology, which is very expensive, your project might become, it might not remain competitive enough for a regime wherein you compare technologies and you purchase power near on the fact of tariff. So on that front, when you induce wind, you are able to bring down your tariff. So it might take another few years for us to be able to have costs for storage technology that is competitive enough, that is appealing enough. But for now, I think Renew Power has already started to deploy their utility scale battery units, storage units in the tender that they won in January 2020. So they've already started putting around 150 MHA of utility scale installation. They've also got one RTC tenders, and the government of India is now swiftly increasing the size and numbers of RTC tenders. We have also seen that now there is a provision from the central government that thermal units can merge renewable energy technologies as part of their mix. So this is another innovation that has come, and we are already pushing to the government that the constituent of RE technology, particularly wind, should be increased. It should be at least 30 to 50% from the conventional thing, so that on one hand we get a push for renewables capacity addition. We are able to decarbonize fast. At the same time, we are also able to achieve tariffs that are competitive and that are appealing to discoms.
Yeah. So one last question for me. How do you see the hydrogen? A lot of people have started talking green hydrogen, and so much discussion is happening. It's a buzzword now in the industry of renewable. So how do you see it going to be make more sustained to wind or particular solar if we are integrating the hydrogen future, basically? So what is the future prospect in that?
So I think there are multiple areas of opportunity. I think the foremost challenge that all of us were facing when we started talking about hydrogen was how to transport hydrogen. So India has found a solution. India will primarily be converting hydrogen to ammonia, and then it will be reconverted. So that is a challenge that we have addressed. But on the cost front, of course, it will take some time. Currently, the cost that we want to achieve is around $1 to $2, and we want to do that with renewables. The kind of cost that we are currently seeing is around $3 to $5, which is still expensive. And most importantly, I would recommend that you please refer to the IRENA report, which says that while there is so much of buzz about hydrogen, but IRENA looks into it and in a different way because of number of reasons. Of course, there is a huge appetite building for and pipeline building for electrolyzers, but we have to see that how it progresses. For now, I think the government of India has set up the hydrogen mission, which is quite commendable. But there are huge steps that we have to take, and as country, we aim to become world's producer of hydrogen, which is most affordable, available at lowest price. So I think that is achievable, and the government is already setting up institutions. But for now, there are a number of technical challenges that have to be dealt with. There are commercial challenges that have to be dealt with, and IRENA has done justice by looking into energy mix, the demand for hydrogen, and evolving trends. I would definitely recommend that you please have a look into the IRENA report. So see what is the appetite for global hydrogen demand, and what are the trends which IRENA sees in the near future, in the short term, in the midterm.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for addressing the question. Yeah.
Thank you, Martand. It was, in fact, many questions have been answered, and we are so happy that you could spend so much of time with us. One small question I wanted to ask: what exactly is your organization doing? I mean, CW. What are the main activities you have?
All right. So, sir, I'm very happy to share with you that the Global Wind Energy Council is a not-for-profit trade association. So we have over 1,500 members globally, and these includes wind power producers. These are wind manufacturers. These are financial companies. These are insurance companies. These are supply chain players. We have an observatory status with the UNFCCC, and we are working very closely with the IEA, World Bank, IFC, IRENA, and IPCC, and others. So our role is not just limited to facilitating business opportunities for countries and for stakeholders, but at the same time, our value proposition lies in the fact that we are doing relevant policy advocacy at different levels, whether it is at the national levels, whether it is at the regional levels, or at the global levels. We also are leading some of the very pioneering initiatives. One, of course, which I mentioned earlier during my discussion, was about greening the supply chain for both solar and wind energy globally. We are already developing a platform, a green powers procurers platform, wherein we have Nike, we have Amazon Web Services, Google, and others who are already part of our platform. So there are very interesting things that are happening. So I would like to sum up by saying that while we are a trade association, but our efforts are not just focused towards facilitating the business and creating business opportunities by marrying relevant parties, bringing them together and seeing that how that marriage happens, but also our focus is largely towards complementing efforts of respective governments towards achieving their own targets.
I had a very vested interest in asking this question.
Sure.
The vested interest is that how do Skill Council can take advantage of your huge network, which is a global network.
Right.
Look, as far as our activities are concerned, we are more focused on skilling and training manpower, training not in the terms of education, but more so in terms of skilling the technicians, the designers, all those things. So for that, wind we could not do much. Solar we have done a lot. About 100,000 trainings have been done, and wherever you go in the solar industry, you will find at least 1 out of 10 people working are at least obtained some training or the other organized by Sector Skill Council, the Skill Council for Green Jobs. But that we could not do in wind sector. And there are multiple reasons for that.
Right, sir.
The manpower required in wind industry is quite different, difficult to have specific training. So my purpose of asking this question was, I would like at least some industry to come in fold of us. One, as mentors for us, for the people who would like to get trained in this sector, and second, job opportunities. Indian job opportunities, possibly abroad, or they coming here and we training them or certifying them and things like that. So this is what my interest was in asking that question. How do we really come together? How do we connect? You being from Terry, I have a very specific right on you to
anytime, sir,
to help us in building our wind sector from the
Absolutely,
starting
sir.
point of from
Absolutely.
from this. क्योंकि ज्यादातर कंपनियां देखो मल्टीनेशनल हैं,
Right,
बहुत
sir.
मुश्किल है उनके अंदर पेनिट्रेट करना कि हम जैसे वेस्टास के साथ हमने किया. वेस्टास टेक्स अबाउट has taken about 1,000 people for their wind turbine industry which are
Right, sir.
trained and certified by sector skill council. तो कुछ इस तरह से हम लोग करना चाहते हैं. In fact, I was just now coining an idea of creating a platform where we can bring in people like you as mentors,
Right, sir.
or it becomes a community of renewable energy, for example. So people
Right.
can ask questions, people can pose their problems, and all of us who have spent our life in this
Right,
sector
sir.
can at least address those question. So very happy to have you here, and hopefully, where are you located? Where are you?
Sir, right now I'm on a travel, but I'll be very happy to come and meet you in Delhi. And I think there are very interesting things that we can do. Some of those we had exchanged over the email. I
Right.
see that there is a huge potential for us to collaborate and build on synergies. I would quickly want to share. I quickly want to share that.
Earliest, whenever you are in Delhi,
Right, sir.
just let me know so that we can fix some time and have real some tangible output for our
Absolutely,
audience,
sir.
right?
Absolutely, sir.
So
Thank
once
you very
again,
much,
thank
sir.
you so much. I think you have spent 1.5 hours almost. Thank you so much once again. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure, sir. And it's an honor to be part of this initiative.
Thank you.
Also, I
Thank
finally
you.
congratulate SCGJ for this Vayumitra program that is ongoing. And of course, the Vestas case study we are going to include in our forthcoming roadmap that we are developing for the state of Tamil Nadu. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very
Bye.
much for your valuable time, Martand.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure.
The knowledgeable speech.
Thank you,
And
sir.
दिल्ली लौट के आइए तो बताइए, मैं सर से टाइम लेता हूँ.
Absolutely, sir.
हाँ, तो मिलते हैं फिर.
Definitely,
और
sir. Thank you.
हम जल्दी ही फिर आपको इनवाइट करेंगे किसी और
Fair enough, sir.
टॉपिक को लेकर के.
Always a
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you, sir. Bye.
Martand. Thank you all participants.
Thank you, everyone.